a for and against perspective, because just I've been on my own personal journey since this week alone about the whole how to look at this whole election year.
Hmm.
So it should be interesting. Once again, it's unscripted. Yay. My
Hmm.
favorite. Oh, help me. Oh, for everyone who is coming in, though, my apologies for being late with this one. There was some things I wanted to talk about before we got started, which we did, so I'm ready to go now. But boy, next week will
Gonna
be
be a
more
wild
accurate.
ride.
Yes, it's definitely going to be a wild ride. Get ready, get set.
Get ready, get set, share.
Yeah. Share with your friends. I'm gonna refresh this. I'm gonna share this myself. As me. Yeah, there we go. Share now. So there we go. Okay, that looks good. Everything looks live on this end. We just press play here, and yes. Good. Everything is as it should be. Okay, cool. All right. Move over to multi-stream so I can see what everyone's saying. Refresh the chat. So that way if someone does say something, I can see it be said. And cool. All right. I'll wait until you make your post and we'll get started. By the way, happy Halloween!
Happy Halloween!
Ooh.
Go home, all you kids trying to get free candy.
I don't give no free candy. When you come to my door, you better bring cash.
Could you imagine how disappointing it would be to go up to somebody's door, trick or treat, and then they pray for you?
I do not doubt that has happened. I am like, not only have someone probably done that, they have probably also put like Bible tracts into their plastic pumpkins.
Ooh, that would piss me off. I don't want no Jesus. Give me some nougat.
Give me some Reese's Buttercup.
Ooh.
I know you want a chocolate bar, but here's your own Bible.
Oh! Wow. Anyways, hello everybody, and welcome to Thought Raid, a show where we take on your thoughts and find better ways of thinking about them. I'm Brandon Brown, owner of United Gamers Nations and a lay counselor, and with me today is the wonderful Tim Denock of Break the Meta. And today is Halloween, and we are live on Halloween. Yay!
Happy Halloween, everybody!
Happy Halloween! And if this happens to be like your first stream that you stumbled upon, and if you like it and then you see a little zombie go across, I just want you to know from the bottom of my heart that has nothing...
Happy Halloween!
Wait, that's not what I was gonna say.
It's like on, what is that show, The Muppets? Whenever somebody says the word.
Gosh, I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that has nothing to do with Halloween. I'm so sorry. That's just permanently, however someone likes our stream, it's going to show up until we can figure out how to make it Miles Tails from Sonic Adventures, as it should be.
Wait, is that his name? Miles Tails?
Miles Tails, yes.
What a stupid name.
Wow!
I always thought it was just Tails.
No,
that's weird.
He is Miles Tails. I couldn't tell you if like Sonic had some other part of his name in there, but he's just Sonic. But Miles Tails is the official name of Tails. So.
Oh, Brandon.
Yes.
Great announcement to everybody watching. If you know our friends Matt and Victoria Russell, they are having a baby today. So happy Halloween, child. Birth child of the evil.
Birth child of the evil. Well, I mean, to be fair, like there is a chance their baby will come on Halloween, but knowing how first pregnancies go, it could be November 1st by the time that child comes. You don't know.
That's just so weird. It's just like, push it out.
Yeah, okay.
I'm so glad I'm ignorant about this and I don't have to go through it ever.
Your ignorance is quite flagrant. just push it out. Yeah, that's it. That's gonna help women everywhere having babies today. Anyways, well, so today is gonna be an interesting day. This week on Monday, as some of you guys know, Tim was up in, was it Wisconsin? Were you up in Wisconsin?
Wisconsin? No, we were in. Goodness, had a throat bubble. We were in Michigan.
Michigan, okay. So you were up north, and we were down south, and they were busy with an emergency kind of going on, which everything went well. So I'm very excited for that. And during that time, I wanted to talk about something that was really burdening my heart, about the importance of not being overwhelmed to vote, but despite the fact of the level of competency for both candidates, to still take a chance, take a risk, and to go out there and to vote. The only problem was of that week that my internet was crap. And so the entire video, which I thought was only going to last like less than 30 minutes and ended up being 50 minutes, the entire video was just a garbled mess of Japanese, like early 1900s video. It was just, I was saying things and the words were happening after I said them. And it was just like, we can't reuse this video. So anyways, that being said, I want to kind of go over that topic. And I have with me Axeman again, who is in the background. You won't be able to see him, but you'll be able to hear him. Hey. Oh, Tails' full name is Miles Tails Power. Oh, okay.
Prower?
Or is it? Oh, Prower. Prower or Power? I'm curious. And also,
is Tails like his maiden name or something?
His maiden name. That would require him to be a woman. But
hey, man.
But
that's a different topic.
While we're at it, though, Jared, do you know if Sonic has a full name too, or is it just Sonic? Because now I'm curious, if Tails has a name, does Sonic have a name, or is it just Sonic?
Sonic the Hedgehog, first, middle, last.
There you go, Sonic the Hedgehog, with the R. So Prower. So Miles Tails Prower. Okay, cool. I did not know that. I only knew his first and middle name then, I guess. So now I've been educated. My life has been complete. But no. So I wanted to just kind of go over this topic again, and just really talk about voting this year and just kind of navigating, especially emotionally, this time, because I think for a lot of people this week and next week is just super stressful for them, because everywhere you turn, you go to social media, there are ads to vote. You turn on the TV, ads to vote. You open your mailbox, ads to vote. You go to your email, ads to vote. It's just vote. And I think for a lot of people, that could be super stressful. And I also know some people that this is their first year to be actually voting, and what a time to jump right in. There's no easy way to jump in except right into the hot cauldron mess that is our political system presently. So today I don't really want to talk about like who you should vote for. That's not really my focus for today's like what I want to go over in Thought Raid. What I really want to focus on is, should you vote? And if not, how should you look at this whole election? What's a healthier way? In fact, actually, as I'm saying that, I feel like I'm getting a download in my heart, to specifically, should you vote, and how should you look at the importance of voting, or who does and does not get into office? Because I think more importantly then the results of this election, that we should be paying attention to how we should interpret it moving forward once it happens, and how to just, I don't know, work with it all. Because I think that's going to be a huge burden that no matter who gets into office, there is going to be additional turmoil that we are going to have to grapple with. And I want us to be as prepared for that as possible. So, I don't know, just starting right off with it, should we vote? I want to, now that you're here with us, Tim, I want to kind of get your perspective on the matter of should we or should we not be voting this year? What are your thoughts on this one?
You know, Ariane and I have been talking about whether we're not going to vote and who we're going to vote for if we vote, and it's tough, because it does seem like there's not a right answer.
Mm.
And if you've ever been faced with a difficult decision, and there's tons of situations out there, like if you consider abortion, for instance, there's the situation that a lot of people position saying, well, if the baby survives, the mom doesn't. If the mom survives, the baby has to get aborted. And, then they talk about things like rape. Should the girl have to go through that being the pregnancy if she gets raped? And it's like, how do you make the right decision? That's really tough. And when it's your responsibility to choose to commit to an action to either vote for this person, or not vote. I say those because it's extremely unlikely that a write-in vote like Kanye West or a write-in vote like Jesus or your pastor or whatever is actually going to win, or Joe Jorgensen. It's like, here's your participation trophy, Joe.
Your participation. Oh, jeez. Wow.
I'm serious though. It's extremely unlikely. And then you have the people in the camp that think, okay, well, I'm just gonna make a gag vote and I'm gonna throw my vote away. And there's so much judgment around all that, and then you have households where the household is split, and then you have families that are split, and you have communities that are split, and each of them have their own reasons for that, their own backgrounds and their own biases and different means of impetus for making the decision or not making the decision. And they're all valid, they're all valid. Like, I have friends who are hardcore Democrats, and I don't like creating camps because it creates division between people, but they're hardcore Democrats, and they're pro gay marriage. They're pro abortion. They're for all these different reasons because they have a lot of empathy with people that are going through difficult things.
Right.
And then I have friends of mine that are on the right-hand side where they're against abortion. They are, pro guns, and they have reasons for that too, and I get that as well. And it's really difficult to come to the table and make a decision for a huge body of people like a country and say, here's the right way to do it, because there is no right way. Because when you do that, you dehumanize every single person who has the means and the ability to vote. Basically, you say, if you vote this way, you're a piece of trash. You basically say all the things you care about for whatever reason are meaningless. Your feelings and your worldview as a human, it's meaningless, and you dehumanize that person. It's especially worse when people do it to you because you get defensive, or a lot of us get defensive. I know I get defensive. I try not to, but we're still at an impasse, my wife and I. We don't even know if we're going to vote because on one hand, it's like, okay, I could vote for this person or this person. And then what do you do when you hit the I told you so moment? What if I vote for Trump and then the country goes to crap? And then all these supremacy groups and all the stuff that media is telling you will happen happens. What if all that does happen? That would be horrible. On the flip side, what if I vote for Biden and all this stuff that other people are saying, like the country's going to turn communist, socialist, all the Marxism stuff, legalizing abortion in every state, all these babies that are going to die, and what if I vote for them and that happens? There's great evil on both sides, and there is no right answer. And that's because, well, we'll get into that later. But the reason we're having a decision or having difficulty making the decision to vote or to not is because we also have God. We believe in God, we believe in Jesus, and we believe that he's going to lead the nation. And every single, I don't know if this is true for you, Brandon, or for you, Axe. I actually don't know how old you are, but since I was able to vote, I think I have voted twice, and I'm 36 years old.
Interesting.
So that means that I've had what, four or five, I don't know, opportunities to vote, and I voted twice.
Interesting.
I think. And each time it's like I did my civic duty. I didn't really do a lot of research, the first time I just did whatever my family was doing. This was years ago. The most recent time I voted, I prayed about it because, once again, which evil do I want to vote for, Hillary or Trump?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a trap in that too. Calling those two people evil is really bad because you dehumanize them as well, because they're people too.
Yeah.
They're just in the spotlight because, like the Bible says, those of us who are teachers are held to a much higher standard. Essentially, we have to live in a glass house, and everything is going to be scrutinized.
Yeah. There's a big. I want to at least put this out there. There's a big difference between, calling what someone is doing as wrong and calling someone in their entirety wrong. Because people make bad decisions and they do wrong actions, but it's up to God to decide whether that person is or is not evil. Like, that is not for us to decide their evilness. So I think that's interesting to point out when you're saying that, like, neither Trump nor Hillary is evil, in the same way that neither Joe or Trump is evil. Neither one. We have no way. We as human beings, that the mass majority of us do not have direct connection to Joe Biden or Trump, can't call them up, don't know where they live, don't know how to contact them, don't see what they do on a day-to-day basis. We have no ability to rightfully judge how evil or good they are. It's not in our jurisdiction. We have the ability to look at what they have done and stood for and make decisions on those particular things as right or wrong. But who they are, their character, is just not touchable. You can't touch that. You don't know.
Well, before this, you were talking about injustice and how it really bothers you when people are misrepresented. And if you think about it, the vast majority of us voting who have very strong feelings about these people, like, there are people who absolutely abhor Trump.
Right.
And then there are a lot of people who champion him, and the same for Biden. And probably less than 1% of them have ever actually had met the guy or seen the guy in person, much less had a conversation about them.
Yes. Every
single thing that you know about that person that's fueling these emotions are things that have been written down, documented, that they purportedly did. Facebook or social media, things that have been shared saying this person did this or this person did this. And then you also have the emotional feelings of the people around you saying, well, this person's in office and this is doing this, and here's how crappy it's making my life. And then you have that emotional tie, which is fueling your position that this person is evil. And that's really interesting, because that's kind of like taking a step back to one of our streams a couple weeks ago. That's kind of what the church has done to the LGBTQ community. Instead of humanizing the people and actually talking to people in that community on a human level and saying, hey, what are you going through? Let's actually work through this. Let me put you above the circumstances.
Let's focus on the lack of confidence. Let's focus on the drug addiction. Let's focus on these parts that are destroying your life, not you're a terrible person.
Yeah. It's just like, let me slap a label on you, and because you've got that label, you suck.
No.
And that's really tough.
Yeah, the Bible specifically warns about judgments of that nature. Like, we make judgments every day, and judgments in and of themselves are not wrong. But when you begin to make character judgments of this person, you begin to boil them down into this particular category, and that is who the person is, you failed. Right then and there, you've reached too far. You've spoken incorrectly because you do not see their heart, their intentions, and why they're doing as they're doing. The only thing we can properly judge is what someone's action, the action is, whether that action, not exactly their intention behind the action, because we don't really know that, but at least the action and its effects, and we can look and analyze what is it's not what's in a man that defiles him, but what comes out of a man. So looking at that thing, that result of what they have been thinking that just came out, and looking at that thing that we're able to kind of like, look at, deconstruct and work on. But the minute that thing that they did, we begin to then associate it with the entirety of that person, that's where you start to run into issues, because, again, you don't know that. You don't live with the person. You're not in their brain. You don't see their spirit. Only God sees those things. And the Bible talks about to not judge, because in the same way that you judge others, you also will be judged. So by saying that, voting for Joe Biden means, you will become a socialist, or with Trump that you're a fascist, like, incorrect. If people if people really wanted to be those things, or did not want, I think a lot of people don't really want those things. They're not going to be voting for them. Like, no one logically votes for fascism or socialism. Like, people, there are things that they see in their campaigns, like, oh, I want that in my life, and they're voting for it out of the goodness, or what they their good intentions, not necessarily because they want to just screw everyone over and screw this country or whatever. It's like, there may be some people that are like that, but I feel like I'm rambling. Help me, Tim.
Oh, it's okay. I think it just comes down to laziness. And I say this now. So before I go into this, if you're watching this, I want to challenge you just to lay everything down. I'm not attacking you. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying you're wrong. Just lay it down and just hear what I'm saying. And let's proceed through this with an open mind. It's laziness, because it's so, with how busy we are, or how busy we think we are, or how busy we think we need to be on a daily basis. There's so much. And, people say, oh, I don't have any time. And then you scroll through Facebook or Instagram for 2 hours a day. And, you open the fridge 4 or 5 times before you decide, I'm going to eat this sandwich. We're so busy. And especially with something that's as big as an election, or even choosing a spouse, a lot of people make an emotional decision about marrying somebody or having sex with somebody. We do a lot of things based on emotion and convenience. So, for instance, if I said, let's just say I'm for gay marriage, but I'm a Christian who is against homosexuality, that would blow people's minds. And this is just something I've been thinking of. I don't really know what I think about this yet, but for instance, separation of church and state. Okay. So if I say, what do you think about gay marriage? People are really quick to slap a label on it because it's easy, right? And say, I'm for or against. Well, no, none of this has a clear option to say for or against. All this is tied to everything else, and you have to be willing to go through the crap and make sometimes difficult decisions that don't look good initially. So, for instance, gay marriage, right? I don't support homosexuality, and there are reasons for that. Now, I'm willing to talk to anybody about that. Now, I'm not saying that people who practice homosexuality are bad people. It's the behavior, right? But am I for gay marriage? Well, I think I actually might be. And that's a big statement to make. And here's why I think that. If you think about separation of church and state, you think, okay, well, you have a church entity and a state entity. And there's all this stuff in the past where, the church was a piece of crap, where they took advantage of people and took advantage of the government, not as a whole. There were people in the church that did that. And so it was necessary to split the two, right? And then if you look at the Christian faith, a real bona fide relationship with Jesus. Hey, Deathbane.
Hey.
A real bona fide relationship with Jesus is based on freedom of choice, right? And if you don't have that freedom of choice, there is no right or wrong. If you tell somebody that they can't do something and you take that freedom from them, there is no correction. There is no opportunity for them to go in the wrong path. So if you have an entity like a government, for instance, that gives people freedom to do whatever they please, people are going to do whatever they please, right? And like I said, I'm just thinking this out. I don't know if that's what I actually think, but if people are allowed to marry homosexually, that doesn't mean that God can't come in and correct that. That just means, let's say we take the stance of, okay, you can't get married as a homosexual. They're going to find a way to do stuff, and they're going to do it in the dark, and they're going to do it with fear and trembling from man instead of God, because there's judgment from man, Is this making sense, Brandon?
Oh, it's interesting. It's definitely something I've thought about in the past of like, recognizing there's a scripture verse, I think it's in the very beginning of Romans, that talks about God giving people over to their wild passions, just out of
Hmm.
almost out of frustration of just like, I've tried to show you the truth and you're still going off and living in self-destructive ways, so I'm going to let you,
Hmm.
do what you want to do and reap the benefits and the destruction of that, like to your own bodies. Like, you want this, have it, but also take the consequences that go along with living that lifestyle as well. So I've wondered and thought about that, of like allowing that. But the only thing that keeps me from saying like, oh yes, I do support something like that, is the expectations that were on every king that was in Israel. Like every king that came into power in Israel, they one of the key defining things that First and Second Kings records about these kings is that whether or not they tore down the evil things that the country built up. So, for instance, every generation, the Israelites would end up inevitably building Asherah poles, which Asherah, I think, was like the god of fertility or something. And then they would make altars to Baal, and Baal, like, on these altars they would burn their children and babies and sacrifice them to Baal for, I forgot exactly what Baal was over in particular, but they would do atrocious things. And every single king, when you are reviewing their lives in these recordings of their actions, they were remembered for, did they or did they not tear down these worshiping of other gods and these other things. They weren't remembered for their strategicness of like allowing people to do what they wanted to do. In fact, the ones that were considered evil were the ones that just perpetuated the sinful life of the people of Israel. So because of that, I'm stand more in the sense I stand more on the side of not allowing it, but not just stopping with that
Hmm.
though. In the same way that I don't support abortion, I also don't want to just remove it and have nothing to replace it with. Because that's
Hmm.
the reason why it exists. We wouldn't have people
Hmm.
wanting to have abortion if there wasn't also easy ways of like cheap ways for women to have babies safely and with set I'm having a hard time
Sanitary.
sanitary and cheap ways for women to have babies. If that was in place, if there was good orphanages and adoption agencies, it would be less it would be a lot harder to want to have abortion in that case, because
Hmm.
then I can safely give my child to this place. At the
Yeah,
same
and oh,
time,
sorry.
it even goes deeper than that, though, like to work on the morality of the country as a whole, to actually think before you have sex, like realize that this sex could lead to a child I may not be ready for. And so we can avoid adoptions and orphanages if we start going all the way back. So it's like, yes, okay, you could be on the side of like, let's give everyone what they want in their sinful nature. But I think the problem with pandering to a sinful life is it's never enough. So you
Hmm.
give them that, then they want something else after a while. And it may not be that generation, it may be the next generation after them that wants something more. So that's why I'm kind of like, okay, I understand it, but I'm
Hmm.
concerned of like it's just never going to be enough, because that's what sin is. It's a black hole.
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
can't
and
go
well,
ahead.
that statement that you said is the crux of it. It's never going to be enough, because when you start peeling back the layers of this stuff and you peel back why people want certain things in the first place, and like the abortion thing, for instance, what I saw somebody who proposed this idea that said, why don't we just take all the funding for abortion and all the gusto and everything that's for abortion, and instead translate that into support for orphanages, and like you were saying, and people to have safe births, and more education on contraception, and it goes even deeper than that, because in certain households that stuff is not even taught because they're single parent households, and that's tough too. So then you have to tackle this issue. So you can't just tackle one issue, you have to tackle all of them, and no person can do that. And
Right.
the reason I bring this up is, it just gets to a point where it's overwhelming, and then it's almost like we're forced, if we make a decision, it's almost like we're forced to just make an emotional decision, or pick out the biggest rocks that we can focus on. That's why most people say, I'm voting for Biden because he supports abortion and gay rights. I'm voting for Trump because he supports capitalism and guns, or whatever. And that's what creates these big camps. And then somebody from this camp over here says, well, what about this little issue? And they find different small things to support their big rock, to kind of leverage favor in one way or the other, instead of saying, okay, well, our healthcare system is a piece of crap right now. What are we going to do about this? Our education system is falling apart.
Yeah.
We have all these kids on the border that are not being taken care of. And if we're supposed to be a Christian founded nation and people are being treated so poorly in our own country, what the heck are we doing, America?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly the biggest issue is that I guess this is like late term things we're going to be talking about tonight, which we're getting ready to, and I guess maybe we might jump into it sooner than I was expecting. But the real issue, and the thing that we should be looking at for this election, is that no candidate, Trump or Biden or Joe Jorgensen or whomever they may be, is going to solve the issue, because I think really the only thing they can do is just delay the inevitable. Really, to be honest, until we as a country on a grassroots level start living the lives we want others to live and lead by example, or we just get so wild that the country is just going to be unable to defend itself against invaders. Because that's usually what happens with countries. Either the country realizes that the problem starts at home, or someone invades their home. And then there's just time between those two of whether they come to the realization of, crap, my house is not in order. I have been wanting people to treat me with respect, to accept me where I'm at. But at the same time, every time I expect that, I haven't been treating my neighbor with respect and respecting his beliefs and, accepting him where he's at. They're not. Oh, that spooked me. Thank you for liking the stream, Jeremy. I appreciate it.
Hello, Jeremy.
You don't realize it. Like, a better America doesn't start with Trump or Biden. It does not start with your Senate. It does not start with your House of Representatives, the Supreme Court. It begins at home. And maybe you've grown up and you didn't have a good home. Maybe you grew up in a broken family. Your father was never there for you. Your mother was never there for you. Or your parents were always against you. Maybe they really hated you. Like, it still starts with you. You could be the one to slowly but surely, as you begin to help other people, realize that they're also involved in this process too, to begin to make a better America. The quality of our politicians is born from our own houses. And so if you look at where the United States is, it's not, oh wow, how terrible Trump is and how much he just makes everyone divided against each other, or how, deceptive Joe Biden may be and how he may not even be fit. Like, that came from us. We are responsible for Trump. We are responsible for Joe Biden. We are responsible for the vice presidents and all the people who are in there. How we have lived our lives set the stage for their ideologies and what they're trying to push now. And now they've come to a place of leadership, and we are now deciding who we want to be leading us for right now, but they are only going to buy us time. They're not going to solve the issues. If we want to create a world where homosexuality is not something that we're rejecting people over, but we're loving those people and we're working with them. If we want to create a world that's safe for foreigners to come in and don't have to worry about immediately being booted out, if we want to create a world where women are empowered to be just as strong as men, where all races are equal, that has to start with us. It cannot start with our governments. It will never start with our governments, because love has to be given. It can't just be forced. Like the government, only thing the government's going to do is going to force you to love someone in a particular way, which the minute they stop doing that, you're not going to want to do. But if we can work on our hearts to properly love people as we love ourselves, then we will start to see true change. And I think that's why it's really important that we start with the church, because if the church does this job, the church is besides the individual, the church is the closest thing to the ground of a
Brandon,
country.
well, would you clarify what exactly you mean by the church?
The church,
just for people.
So when I say the church, I'm talking about the collectives of the groups of Christians in this country. So like Christians go to a church, or they're a part of a church body. Sometimes it has a physical location. Sometimes it has an internet location. Sometimes it's just a couple people in someone's house. But if any Christian, anyone who follows Christ, collectively or singly, begins to live as God shows us to live, where we love him and we love our neighbor as ourselves, then we can begin to see better politicians rise up, and people that have and hold to, honestly, the values that are truly important. I don't know. So I think that's just really important. What is this thing that you've posted here?
So you made me think about something. And I was, okay. So for those of you who don't know, the emergency or whatever that took me up to Michigan was, there was an incident with my wife's grandmother, and we went up there and we helped out. And I got to talk with the grandmother. I got to talk with the other grandmother. We just spent a lot of time just talking, and they're older people. And one of her grandmothers is 96, the other is 88. And in communicating with them, I just left a lifestyle down here, or a daily routine where we would make videos, we would stream, we would talk, we would go to the gym, try to look hot, look for stuff on Amazon, watch The Office. And there's just all this stuff that filled our day. And going up there, it was a really good awakening. I use that. I'm not trying to be trite, but going up there, on the plane, I got moved to read Ecclesiastes. And if you've never read Ecclesiastes, it talks about, from the perspective of King Solomon, what life is and how much stuff we chase after is, as he says, vanity and chasing after the wind. And what he means by that is it's for nothing. And the dude had riches. He had built himself gardens. He had done everything that we aspire to. It's just like thinking, okay, well, if I have $1 million, I'll be good. And then you get $1 million. Well, if I had $10 million, I'll be good. I have 10 million. Okay. If I had estates, I'll be good. And you chase after all this stuff. And if you're in your 20s, you're chasing after a house, a wife, a husband, chasing after a car, a position, a degree. When you get in your 30s or 40s, you chase after promotion, you chase after retirement. 50s, 60s, you chase after grandchildren, you chase after whatever. But you hit this part in life, as I discovered after talking with the grandmas or the grandmas.
The grandmas.
Yeah, their perspective is completely different, and it shook me, And I was sitting here thinking, man, the things they focus on every day and the things that matter to them are not the things that, it's stuff that I say matter to me, but my actions and my perspective say otherwise. The reason I posted this, Brandon, it says, most of us remember people we meet after age 5. Assume we interact with 3 new people daily in cities, 365 days a year, plus leap days, whatever. In total, it's 80,000 people. You interact with 80,000 people in your life. Grandma Doris is one of the most amazing people I've ever met. And we sat in her house, me and Ariane, talking with her 3 nights in a row from about 6 o'clock until midnight. That's a long time. And it was really good conversation. And she told us that she has not left her home since March. We were the first people, aside from Ariane's parents, that she's been in contact with in her home for that long.
Wow.
And, the things that she was saying to me, It's really weird that I read Ecclesiastes on the plane ride up there. It mirrored everything that she was saying. You know, she purged a lot of her stuff years ago, and she's like, well, why do I need all this stuff? Why do I need all this money? She didn't have money. She's like, well, why do I, my needs have always been met. What am I living for? What is my purpose? And then here we are about to elect a new president, and people are freaking out. A large amount of us are freaking out. And we're thinking this one person is going to change a nation of millions of people. Every person watching this, on average, influences 80,000 people in their life. And in the Bible, we're called to, is it a year?
I think so, because you're saying 365 days plus leap year. So then,
yeah, okay, so a year.
Wait. What's that math? In total, it'll be 78.3 minus 5 times 3 time. Okay, I'm sorry. No, I think you got it right. Within your life, okay. About 80,000 people. Sorry.
It's okay. So on average, you'll influence 80,000 people, right? And that's not people that you just meet on Facebook and you scroll through and you have a conversation with. It's people that you meet face to face. You can see them, you can hear them, you can see their emotions, feel their emotions, see what they're going through. You have tangible interaction with those people. And the Bible calls us to love your neighbor as yourself. That's the fulfillment of love, right? Love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. And that got me thinking, all these things that I champion on social media and I champion when we do this stuff, when it's just me and my neighbors out in my yard, or when it's, me and the homeless guy on the side of the street, am I still championing the same things? And if so, what if this person that's dying on the side of the street is against abortion and I'm for it, and I'm so like, my heels are dug into the hill of anti-abortion, and I'm like, I just write that person off. No, that doesn't matter. You take that away because the person's dying on the side of the street and they need love, they need support. And dude, I don't know all my neighbors. There's probably like 7 or 8 homes within my sphere of influence here. I don't even know who they are. I don't know if they're having a good life, a bad life. I don't know if their marriages are falling apart. I know the people across the street, okay. And yet I'm on the internet saying, here's how you live life. Right? I don't know. That's just a really crazy perspective, thinking that you have the capacity to influence that many people, and yet we waste all of our day, every single day, for the majority of us, championing things and not doing it in our everyday life when we have that much capacity to influence people. And like you said, it starts in the home. It starts in the neighborhoods. Right. So what are we doing? Why? But anyways.
Yeah. Well, I think just to be balanced, because I know that I could hear, oh, there's so many neighbors around me and I haven't ministered to a single one of my neighbors. Like, I could take that and immediately like chop myself down and feel so terrible. But I feel like there are people that God leads me to, and to ignore those people that he leads me to is where the problem really begins. Because, like, for instance, I was, I did go vote. And because that's one of the things I feel like God was like pushing me to do. And I feel like he wanted me to like research the people that I was voting for, so that I wasn't just like, oh, I'm just going to vote straight this way. And I was like, no, because not every Republican is perfect and not every Democrat is perfect. That both of them have flaws and both of them have strengths, and you want to be conscientious of that. So I took some time. I think I probably I didn't spend a long time. I spent maybe about an hour and a half, I'd say, roughly, safe to say, just going through what they stood for and stuff, and anything that I could glean through some research. But as I was coming back from voting, I got into my car, and my mind immediately went to like these 3 people. If you've been to any sort of election place, there's always these, what do they call it, bipartisan, or just these people that just kind of stand there like, hey, make sure to vote for this person, that kind of thing. And it's just like, would you please leave me alone?
Groupies, Brendan.
I just like, stop it. But my heart immediately felt convicted to talk to them. And I was like, why? I just voted. But God was like, do it, And so I did. I got out after I voted. I'm sitting in my car. I got my car on. I'm feeling so embarrassed. I get in my car. I'm turning it on. The engine's running. And I'm like, I have to do this. So I turn off my car, get back out, and be like, hey, how are you doing? I saw that you were passing out stuff, for the candidates. I'd like to hear what you have to say about your candidate. And so I talked to one people that were candidates for this one Republican, and another one that was a candidate, like not a candidate, but like talking about Democrat candidates. And it was just really interesting just to get to see the people behind the pamphlet. I don't even know exactly what God was wanting me to do. Maybe he was just wanting me not to be overwhelmed by people that want to tell me about their candidate that they're vouching for. I don't know. But we did have good conversations. At the very least, I could see that after talking to them, they felt more fired up to help other people learn about their candidates, which, oops, I don't know. Like, they were kind of avoiding people.
Suck for the next guy, Brandon.
I know. And then I started talking, and they started dishing out more stuff to people, and I was like, But, I think that's good. I think it's good for people to have to encounter someone with passion, even as uncomfortable as it may be, because it forces them to think, and to experience and have to deal with the emotions that rise up with that, rather than just avoiding everything that makes you feel uncomfortable. At least I know that's important for me, because my knee-jerk reaction is to run away, and I know that's not how God lives. He doesn't run away from something. He stands firm. So maybe it was just for me. Maybe it was for them. But it's like there are people that God will highlight for you, and those are the people I feel like you really need to pay attention to and reach out to. I think also there's a point to want to reach out to your neighbors, but at least for me, I know God has not really convicted me to have to go and reach every neighbor I see. I have to talk to you and to you. I have highlight moments where okay, this person just had a policeman in his yard. I want to check up and see how he's doing. Or my downstairs neighbors are having something going on. I need to talk to them about it. I have these highlight moments where God has me interject. But then there is lots of people that I interact on a day-to-day basis, both online and also in person, that would be more closely a neighbor to me because I interact with them and they come up in front of me more frequently than my own literal neighbors are. So I don't know.
Brandon, I'm so glad that you brought this up, because you and I are completely different temperaments when it comes to this stuff. And so you're more like my wife, oddly. And for those of you who don't know, when I make a decision to do stuff like this, it's really easy. And like Brandon's talking about, in the Christian community, we call it flow. Learning just flow and let God lead us, right?
Yeah.
And that's thankfully something that comes naturally to me. But other people, it doesn't come naturally. They feel with a sense of perfectionism almost.
Yeah.
I have to do everything. Oh no, I have 10 neighbors. Okay. This neighbor's this person. And then they miss all the people that God actually puts in front of their path. Right.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you saying that, because you're not meant to influence everybody, because the Bible also says that we're part of a body.
Yeah.
You might be a digit, you might be a finger, or I guess it's the same thing. You might be a leg, whatever, and you're not meant to.
Heart, I don't know.
Yeah, you're not meant to engage with everybody. There's somebody on my Facebook feed who is vehemently against Christians. I would hazard to say he hates Christians, hates them. Posts a lot of things that are very questionable when it comes to being politically correct. Actually, he's not politically correct whatsoever. And yeah, I met him at the gym a while back, and it was like, hey man, I haven't seen you in years. How are you? And the person that is on Facebook is completely different from the person in person. And I'm like, God, why did you put this person in my path instead of somebody that's much easier? I'd much rather help the old lady down the street, or talk to her. And honestly, sometimes those people are in your life not so you can influence them, but it's so that they can love on you and help you and help bring you conviction or things to be convicted by. It's like, you're not a savior to anybody. We're meant to have relationships with people, and you're not meant to have relationships, just like in school, you're not meant to have relationships with everybody. Trying to do so makes you fake, and it exhausts you. And you're not meant to be fake or exhausted. You're meant to live a life that's overflowing and joyous. And that's why you'll have a certain capacity for a certain amount of people with certain temperaments. I married my wife because she was very specific to what I needed and wanted in my life.
Yeah.
And that's why there are all these other girls that either turned me down or I said no to for whatever reason. It just didn't work.
And that brings up to bring this whole thing home. I think that brings up an important aspect. If we cannot affect every single person we encounter, how much less can our politicians fix the issues we're going through? Like, they just can't. The United States is built upon a presidency, a Supreme Court, then you have below the president directly you have the Senate, and then you have the House of Representatives, and there's a Supreme Court to interpret things, and there's just legislative and executive branches. Like, the president does not have the power to make a lot of decisions that they promise to make. There's some they can, there's a lot they can't. So to expect one particular candidate to just fix all our issues is not going to happen. And also to expect that there be any one given, even if the country was in a very high moral place and we frequently did the right thing, even then you will still never find a perfect candidate that has everything that is important to you on their list. So I think it's important. It is to kind of bring to what I was really originally wanting to talk about. I personally believe, and I'm in this current state of, I feel like I'm starting to balance out on this, because I've been hearing, like, we talked last week, or I keep saying last week, we talked Monday, Axe, and you talked about your stances on not voting, and then I've talked with Eric a little bit yesterday about his stances on voting and not voting, and I've heard a little bit from yours. I feel like in as much as you are able to vote in peace, unoverwhelmed by everything that's going on, and it is much so that you're able to vote from a place of taking some time to look into the candidates, what they stand for, and what their track records are before you vote. Not to say that you spend loads of time, because I guess if you did, you would be more so maybe geared towards maybe being a politician one day, so you would take more interest in that. But for the average person like me, just taking some time to look into what they have and have not done and said they're going to do and not done, I would say vote. But if you're in a place where you're feeling like this candidate's going to save you and the United States from problems, and you have anxiety involved when it comes to electing, and you're not really sure how to handle that yet, I would say wait and take your time first to recognize that the best thing that we can do as a voter is to hopefully put our voice out to move America small little bits at a time. It's like I this reference kind of came up when you and I were talking Axe last on Monday, but it's like, when it comes to voting, look at it as more so, how can I exchange upwards towards something better? Like, in a way with an addiction, like, you don't just cut an addiction out of your life and that's it. There is a whole process of replacing the addictive behavior with better things. So, like, for instance, if you typically go to pornography when you feel anxious, it might be important to begin to bring more friends into your life, that when you begin to feel anxious, you can talk to your friends about what you're going through, rather than just isolating when you go straight to porn to fix the issue. Or if you are unhealthy at eating, rather than just cutting all unhealthy food out of your life, maybe find something like a vegetable that you enjoy, maybe partially or a lot, and start exchanging maybe chips for carrots or apples, or something that you find maybe it's not as exciting delicious as chips, but it's still something you don't hate. In the same way with the country, we're not going to vote in someone who is going to fix all of America's issues and make America great again. It's just not going to happen. But what we can do, and if you can get into this mindset that we can push towards a better direction, what we can do is we can vote towards better candidates that get us a little bit closer to a better America, that are more likely to incline to and have the track record to suggest that they are capable and will do what they say to bring America closer to a place where there is more unity and love, and things of that nature, to look at it from that perspective. But then to also recognize that should that candidate not be voted in, which there is a good chance every time that they won't, to then recognize that at the end of the day, they're not the savior anyways. Trump and Biden will not fix America. They're not going to make things better. They can delay the inevitable, but the delay is important for us to then use that time and whatever resources we have to make a difference in the communities that we affect, to begin being the things that we want to see first. So when we want to see acceptance and love, to be that. Are you willing, if you are in the LBGT community, are you willing to love and accept people that don't believe what you believe? Are you willing to love and accept heterosexuals? Heterosexuals, are you willing to love and accept homosexuals and to treat them with respect as you would want them to treat you? Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. As Christians, are we willing to accept the women who go through with abortion and to love them and to support them? Are we willing to do that, or are we just going to try to force them to do the right thing? As those who are in support of abortion, are you willing to accept the Christians who find that abortion is not of God and is bad for the country, and to work with them? Because if you don't do that, the politicians aren't going to do that for you either. They're not the solution. Politicians are not God. They're not the savior of the world. They are there to keep the peace to the best of their known ability. And it is our job to foster and create an environment where the things that we want are first happening through us. And if we do that, and we're honest that when we get angry by what someone says, but realize that we are just as capable of doing that ourselves, and then we hold ourselves back and take that and work on that aspect so that we don't keep getting irritated by the person that does the thing that we don't like, as we were talking about yesterday about how to love your enemies. I feel like that's how we get to that place where we begin to create a better America, and specifically politicians that are much more able to bring the country to that place where we want it to be. What are your thoughts? And I've been going to you, Tim, the whole time, but Axman, you're still here, so I wanna throw this out to you just as much as I'm throwing out to you, Tim, to both of you. Do you have any particular thoughts to add to that or anything? Because I don't want to be the one holding up all this.
I mean, that was a lot. I do agree that the real solution for our world is definitely more love, and I can rapidly realize that not one person, not one president is going to be able to solve the whole world's problems like that. That's definitely going to have to be a change within everyone's hearts, not just one particular person's.
Yeah.
I've just been sitting here thinking, to vote, to not to vote, and
That is the question.
That is the question. And it just makes me sad to think about how, for such a big decision, people are approaching it from the position of finding identity in winning instead of actually making a change. And I think, especially if you're so focused on your side winning that you don't really care about the overall health of other people, especially the people that you're against. Because let's say that you're right and they are wrong,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your goal isn't to just throw them in the dirt. Your goal is to help them. You know,
Right.
if somebody comes to me and posits the idea that alcoholism is good, and my position is alcoholism is bad. If I win the argument and I cast my ballot for alcoholism being bad, and I win, it's like, yeah, I won. Yeah, alcoholism is bad. 2020. You know, I, I don't. They not only have they lost, but then they don't think that I'm going to help them or I care about helping them because it was all about me in the first place. Right. And I don't even struggle with alcoholism. It's just a perspective that I have. I've never had to engage in an abortion or think about it. Homosexuality's never been something that's been on my plate of things that I deal with. Um, all these different platforms and whatnot. It's just stuff I have an opinion about. And it's really tough when you just vie for that as my side won. But if you look at it from the perspective of, well, why do I want that to change in the first place? I want people to be healthy. I want them to have good lives. I want life to be supported in all regards. I want LGBTQ people to have a great life. I want unborn babies to have a great life. I want the girl who's been raped and is having a baby not of her on her accord. I want her to feel supported and have a good life as well. It's tough because you can't always meet that. But I think if you're coming to the table and you're thinking, I just want to win, I would discourage you from voting and take a step back and think to yourself, okay, well, what am I actually voting for? Right.
Mm.
And if I would challenge you to take all the things that mean a lot to you and zoom out and zoom out and zoom out again and look at the big picture. I know it takes time and it's exhausting and it takes a lot of thought, but if you're going to have an emotional investment in being right, you owe it to yourself to challenge, okay, well, what am I actually focused on? Do I want healing or do I want to be right? You know? And when you do that, when you actually zoom out and you think, okay, what is the best decision for our nation that I can make, knowing that I could be wrong, because there are always going to be those I told you so moments on both sides. There's always going to be those. I told you shouldn't vote for Trump. I told you shouldn't vote for. Look at our country. You know, there are always going to be those moments, but you have to approach it with humility, saying, you know what? Even though I don't agree with this, or this, I feel like this might be the best decision for our country, knowing that I might be making the wrong decision. But I also know that, as Brandon was saying, this one person that I'm electing is not going to fix it anyways. It's my job to influence people and try my best, just like I'm sure they're trying to do their best too, even when all we're seeing is the negative side of what they're doing wrong, you know? And if you're in that place where you don't know if you should vote, because everything looks bad, I want to encourage you to have some confidence in yourself. You know, everybody knows, we know right from wrong. We know good from evil, but too often and too easily do we get so focused on our definition, our personal definition of that, which a lot of our personal definitions of right and wrong are wrong. That's why we sin daily.
Yeah.
You know, and we're all broken and messed up.
Yeah. I was also thinking, like, you don't want to make a religion out of the points that you have for this country, because at the end of the day, the average person is not a politician. So the average person has not studied into the social tendencies of the country, what tactical things it has or doesn't have, or things that nature. So there's things we don't necessarily know. There's only things that we see and feel are important. And so to kind of go in from that perspective of like, okay. And I think also for Christians, when we go to if we go to vote, I think it's important to not just to really pay attention of how many of these policies line up with what the Word of God says, and to kind of vote in the direction towards righteousness and what God's Word says. But like, in situations where, like with abortion, like, to be conscientious of like, okay, removal of abortion requires replacement with adoption and cheaper birthing options, because like it could be as expensive as like $10,000 to have a baby in a conventional hospital. It's ridiculous.
And $30,000 to adopt a child.
It's ridiculous. Like, I understand, like, okay, maybe this, that way not the average person who may not be able to handle a child can adopt a child, but still, like, it's that there's a lot of challenges involved. But to keep that in mind, though, moving forward. But I want to say, though, that inasmuch as you are able to vote after taking the time to research about who you're voting about, to think about it, pray about it, and move with God's peace, I would like to encourage you guys to vote. I don't want to say like, and I want to cast this down right now. If you don't vote, you're not a terrible person. Like, that's, I hate that. Don't let that define you. The quality of you is not defined on whether you vote or not. I just suggest that if you can move beyond what the world is expecting of you, if you can move beyond the anxieties, if you can move beyond the irritations and frustrations, and to vote with a clear conscience, taking time to look into what you're voting for, vote. Because I feel like we do have the ability to move America in a slightly better direction with each vote. But if you cannot get to that place, or you do not have peace to vote, then don't vote. It has no forbearance on the quality of a person you are. I just want to work against anxiety and not letting anxiety be the deciding factor not to vote, because that's more of the issue.
And a final thought for me, and I think I'm done personally.
Okay.
Speaking specifically to Christians, it's really easy as a Christian to think that the decision's been made for you on what to do. That's not how it is at all. God gave you the Holy Spirit so that he can talk to you. And there are going to be some great Christians who know God and hear his voice that are going to vote for Biden, some who are going to vote for Trump, and some who are not going to vote for all. And then you're going to have those weirdo Christians that vote for the third parties.
For Joe Jorgensen.
I'm just kidding. But the thing I want to drive home is you don't want to make an idol out of a person, and you don't want a president or a person in office to take the position of God in your life. So regardless of who gets elected to office, we are called to pray for our leaders. We are called to support our leaders, even if we disagree with them. And I would hazard to say, and this is like a really difficult point of view to take, but when Hitler was in office, it was even more so, absolutely that much more necessary for Christians to pray for him, for conviction, to change his ways, to realize that he's actually not doing the right thing, and if you're not praying for him, pray that God does God's will, which is loving through them. Because God uses everything for the good. So whether it's Trump and you hate Trump, whether it's Biden and you hate Biden, just God, I want to lift this person up to you, and I ask that you give them the convictions necessary to run this country. I ask that everybody who touches everything from laws to decisions made, pray that those decisions are made with the love of the greater good at heart. And just pray that people start listening, and pray for growth and pray for revelation for those people. That's what we need to be doing regardless of who wins, not trashing them. Because when you trash somebody and you turn your back on them, that's the opposite of what we're called to do. We are the salt of the earth. We are a light that's on a hill. We're not supposed to be covered. We are supposed to bring light in places of darkness. And if you think our presidency is darkness, all the more reason why you should pray.
Yeah. And I want to say this thing, and then Axe, if you have anything, just to prepare you, if you have anything that you want to say in a closing statement after this, I'll open the door for that. If not, that's fine too. But
Okay.
But yeah, no, I want to second that. I think it's important moving forward. Whoever gets elected, please please pray for them, especially if they bother you. Like, especially if you think they're doing a bad job, whatever, and don't pray for don't pray for God to smite them or for justice or whatever thing that need, like,
God, Trump sucks. Would you do something about it?
No, pray for their blessing. Pray for them to be taken good care of. Pray that they would make the wise decisions for the country and to do the right thing, that God would have a hold of their heart, that God would set them free from anything that they're going through, protect them from assassination, just all kinds of things. You won't believe what presidents have to go through on a day-to-day basis. Like, I remember there was a period of time where there was one particular president where I felt like God really convicted me. You need to pray that this person doesn't get assassinated. And I was just like, oh, I'm praying. Like, you straight up convicted me to pray for the protection for one particular president not to be assassinated. He didn't. So that's great. But I think we really need to pay attention to the scripture verse. It's a hefty one, but it's an important one, and it applies to every single elected official that comes into office. Everyone must submit to governing authorities, for all authority comes from God, and those in positions of authority have been placed there by God. So anyone who rebels against authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and they will be punished. For the authorities do not strike fear in people who do right, but in those who are doing wrong. Would you like to live without fear of the authorities? Do what is right, and they will honor you. And it's not to say that every time you're just protected from bad authorities. Yeah, there are people that get into office that God placed there, but their hearts are not in the right place, and then they end up doing wrong things. And no, God did not want evil things to happen to that country before you start going down that path. That's not who God is. But God sees leadership potential, and he puts different types of people into office that we may or may not agree with. Our job as Christians is to pray for whoever's in leadership until the day comes that they are removed. And a great example of that would have been David and Saul. In the ancient days, when Israel was a kingdom and it was run by King Saul, the first king of Israel, King Saul was a selfish king. He wanted glory. He wanted to do things his way, and God did not like that. But God was the one who put him into office. So eventually there came a point where God anointed another person to become king. His name was David. And David became the greatest king in Israel. He was a man after God's own heart. But while David was in the in-between time of becoming king of Israel, or officially king of Israel, because he was already anointed to be king, he had to submit himself to Saul, who hated his guts. And for most of his adult, almost all of King David's young adult years was squandered having to run away from King Saul. Not to say that it was a waste of time for him at all, but that he had to spend his whole time avoiding persecution. And not once did King David ever speak ill about King Saul or took the chance to assassinate him. And I think that's how much more as we who are not being chased down, by our government, should pray for whoever will be in office both now and after this election. So I just really want to charge you guys moving forward, as for those of you who are Christians moving forward, that we need to pray, whoever it is, pray for wise decisions, pray for their benefit, pray for their salvation. Don't pray harm, pray good. It is God's decision and ability to take them out or do something with them, but it's our job to pray for them. Not to say that we do anything that they say for us to do if it's absolutely evil, but if they're not, and it's just basic stuff, that there is no basis in the Bible for us to hate these people. They're just as much human as we are. We should love them all the much more. Well, we should love them. So, yeah. So that's my thoughts. Do you have any other thoughts before we close out, Axe?
No, I think you guys covered most of it. I'm pretty good.
All right. So I'm good. You're good, Tim?
I'm good.
All right. Well, I want to thank you guys for watching. It's been a lot of fun. We broadcast every week on Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we'll be live again this Monday at that time at 7 p.m. If this video has really blessed you, make sure to like it and to share it with your friends, because we like to get this out to others so they also can be blessed by it as well. So please make sure to do that if you have not done so already. But otherwise, I want to thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you again Monday, November 2nd at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You